Hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Vuvu and this is Vuvu Vena. So on my welcome video to 2019, I mentioned that video would cut into another video, hence. So if you are here, that means that you'd like to see this video. Please, I beg you to please take a moment right now and press the subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. And without any further ado, I'm just going to go through the books that I read in 2018, and I will give you the ratings as well of the books that I read. Some of them were in ebook format, so I will have those like at the corner somewhere on the screen. So I'll share the books in order of reading. So the first book I read in 2018, and I read it already as the year had started. I want to say it was in April. I may be wrong, I don't quite remember, but it was Origin by Dan Brown. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. My rating system ends at 5, so I gave it a 4 out of 5. I did do a review on this channel. I will link that up here somewhere, but I really love this book. So that was book number 1 of 2018. I want to say 2019. The second book I read in 2018 was this one by Tekeng Muhlele. It's called Pleasure. I enjoyed this book. It was a different read for me. It wasn't something that I was used to reading. It was quite a stretch in terms of my mind, but one that I was pleased to have actually embarked on. I really did enjoy it. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 as well, so it was one of the good reads of that year. I really did enjoy it. The next book I read in 2018 was Novice by Taran Mataru, and this is a book, it's part of a series actually, and this is the first book in the series. I haven't been able to collect the rest of the series as yet, but I saw that Reader's Warehouse does have the rest of it, so I will be looking out for that. I enjoyed this book. It was it had some similarities to some books I had read that were part of the supernatural world, if I may put it that way, and I really enjoyed how Taran took his own angle on the whole thing, and I really did find it quite interesting. I make mention of it in my wrap-ups in my blog. I will put my blog name and link down here, so you can go over there and go see what my thoughts were about this book. I gave it, sorry, did I tell you guys? I gave it 3.5 stars. The next book I read was, sorry, my books are not in order where I'm sitting, was To Stir the Heart by Ngungi Waitongo and Bessie Head. This is a collection of short stories, 2 from each of the authors, and both authors are African authors, and it was my first introduction in terms of reading of both of these authors, and it was worthwhile for me. I really enjoyed it. I did make mention of it in my recent reads on this channel, so it was a really good read for me. It was another 3.5. Yeah, the fifth book that I read was the start of a very nice series for me. So I read 3 Dark Crowns by Kindari Blake. I first heard of this book here on BookTube, and it was way before my channel even started, but I knew that it was a copy that I was going to get myself, and I was so thrilled when I actually did get a copy of this, because I love the story that Kindari is exploring in the series. I really love it. It's got a lot to do with power. It's got a lot to do with the dark side, supernatural elements in it. I love stories like that. I really love YA, and I say YA specifically because lots of YA has these kind of themes enshrined in it, and it's really something that I enjoy. I frown upon you if you're gonna ask me why I read YA. It allows you to really imagine a world that really does not exist. It's the crafting of the world, I think, is the one thing that most YA authors have to get right. If you get that right, then you have captured anybody that will read this, because it is the truest exercise of the suspension of disbelief. I cannot say it enough. YA literature that is set in a different world is the one thing I feel that allows you to really imagine. not to say adult fiction does not allow you to imagine, but most of it is set in real life, so the imagination can only go as far as you have experienced life, if you get what I'm trying to say. Whereas this allows you to imagine something outside of life, even though most of it might be founded on real life principles. But there's a magic in YA that I feel like adults need to explore and allow their minds to expand just a tad bit, just a little bit, you know. No harm in that. Anyway, loved this. I gave this 3.5 out of 5. And then I bought them together actually. The sequel, which was One Dark Throne, it was another 3.5 out of 5. I didn't love it as much as the first book, I must say, because I felt like a whole lot of it was trying to explain what happened in the first book, and then a little bit of it went into the next book, which is One Dark Throne, and it took a while for me. But then what I will say about Kendari in the first book and the second book, guys, those cliffhangers, hey, excuse all of that, those cliffhangers are the thing. She always ends her books on a what happens next. I really don't know what to say. That always gets me. And I was lucky enough to get the third book, and the third book I'm currently reading, which is called Two Dark Reigns. So that was 3.5. So the next book I read was a South African book. It's Coconut by Kopano Madlwa. I think this is her debut book. I'm not sure because she's got 3, I think. One's called Spilt Milk, the other is called Period Pain. So this is the first book of hers that I read. I quite enjoyed it. It's a young black South African female author, and for all of those listed attributes is one of the reasons why I knew for sure I had to get a copy of one of her books. And I really did enjoy this. It was simplistic, it was easy to read, it was straight to the point, and she was exploring something that I feel like it was true to my life at a certain point in time. So I really did understand it, and I feel for that I had to like the book. I had to like it. But in terms of everything else, themes and other things that I look at when I am actually rating, it kind of fell a little bit short. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's not a bad book, y'all. I feel like if you can get your hands on it, I know that it's been raved about a lot, especially when it did come out, because it's not a recent, like it's not recently launched. It is an old book, but if you can get your hands on it, I'd advise that you do just that. The next book that I read was one that will forever be dear to my heart, and I do believe there's a sequel this year. I'm crossing everything that I can cross that this is true, and it is none other than Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Guys, what a love. Our black sisters are doing the most, guys, in the African diaspora. Like, listen here, these people, she's an American Nigerian author. This is her debut. I always want to say debut album. This is her debut novel, and it is absolutely divine. I love it for all the reasons I've mentioned for loving YA. It is exceptional. Okay, this is it. This is a book worth getting your hands on. It is beautiful. It is a beautiful book. I rated this book 5 stars out of 5. I couldn't fault it. I loved it. I really did. I read an old collection of poetry by South African poet Kujo Bafo. Well, South African based. I actually don't know if it's actually from South Africa. I don't know. But it's an old collection that I got a long time ago while I was still, I think, in varsity or just after varsity. It's called And They Say Black Men Don't Write Love Poetry by Kujo Bafo. It's a very small collection. I really did enjoy it, but I do believe that perhaps he has grown much more than what these poems hold. So it did have a lot of promise in it. It wasn't something that I raved about, but I really did enjoy it. I gave this a 2.5 stars out of 5. Then I'll put it up here. It was Half of a Yellow Sun by, how would I say Mugi? By Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. lovely book. Like, the one thing that keeps fascinating me about that book is that I cared about war. Like, war in Africa in a book. Like, I could watch it in the news, you know what I mean? Like, even when I watched things around war in the news, I'm always on some. These things are so complex. They stem from something that is so historical that it's so hard to truly wrap your mind around the concept of war, even when it is actually playing out. You have to know politics of a certain country or two countries at that. You need to know where everything stems from in order for you to understand why the fight is there and what they're fighting for, and if it's actually even worth the fight, and what side, if you want to pick a side, you should take. It's just like, it's too complex. But there's something that Ngozi Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie does with this book on the Biafran Nigerian war. What she does in this book makes you care, and how she crafts her characters, how she lures you in with the different tales of the different characters is spectacular. She has done a phenomenal job with Half of a Yellow Sun. I loved it, and it was rated 5 stars out of 5, obviously, if I can rave that much about it. The next book I read was this one, which was also a debut novel by a young black South African woman, and it is non-fiction. It's called Dear Summer, Between Summer and I Lay a Very Cold Winter. It is by Mahlohonolo B. Masebe. She gave me this at a work event. I went through it. I'm not so big on non-fiction, but don't get me wrong, there is non-fiction that I will read and enjoy, but I don't gravitate towards the non-fiction shelf when I go to the bookshop. However, the non-fiction that I have read has been quite well crafted, so I know what to look for in non-fiction. And because this was a self-published book and it was her first book, it fell short of my expectations. And this is not to say you guys would not enjoy this book. She is on Instagram. I think she's there as Mahlohonolo B. Masebe. Please do look out for her. She does sell her own books. So if you are interested in a copy of this, then you should definitely give her a shout out or whatever on Instagram. I did review this book on my blog, so if you want to see a bit more about what I liked, what I didn't like about the book, it's up on my blog, www.vuvuvenareads.com. I rated this a 2 out of 5. And then the next book I read was also an ebook, Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. If you've been around on this channel long enough, you will know that all my Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie books are in ebook format, which is something I lament every single time I mention it. So just take a moment, please. Let us take a moment. Anyway, so it will be up here somewhere. Purple Hibiscus was her very first novel, so it was her debut novel. So I kind of read her books and not in order. I don't do that with all authors. Some authors I'll read in order, some authors I really don't mind not reading in order. So it was her debut novel. And before that, I had read, obviously, as mentioned, Half of a Yellow Sun. Before Half of a Yellow Sun, I'd already read Americana, and that speech that she made about we should all be feminists. I already read that as well. So this was my 4th, if you want, book of hers that I had read, and I really loved it. I always say when I talk about this book, it is a very big pity that I read it after Half of a Yellow Sun, because had I not, it would have knocked me off my feet. But because I didn't, dude, I kept reading it with the same expectation from the author, which is unfair, that I had experienced in Half of a Yellow Sun. And if this was her first ever novel, then this is a great piece of literature. For a debut novel, she had done the most with this piece of work. So I know it's unfair of me to rate her 4 out of 5 for a book that came before the book that I actually loved, but that's what I did. I gave her 4 out of 5. So I still loved it. I did love it. It's the truth. So the next book I read, I feel like I need a drum roll. I don't know what else to do, but if I could dance, I would be dancing up on the screen, because this book gave me life. Okay, it gave me so much life. This book was everything, like everything. And I keep saying every single time I talk about it to anybody, and anybody who cares to listen, or if I even glimpse at it on my shelf, I'm like, Debbie, say what? Angie Thomas is, you guys better find yourself a copy of this. She is coming out with another book. It is not a sequel, it is another novel this year. Listen here, guys, listen. Here's a black sister who's doing the things. She is doing everything that needs doing when it comes to writing. Like, I literally, and I'm not even trying to act up, every single time I think about this book, I get goosebumps. I have no words. I know not how to express everything that is this. So the only thing I can say to you is just get it. Get yourself a copy. Get yourself and your hands on something like this. You won't regret it. This thing is beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of work. It got 5 out of 5 from me. And the last book I read, which brings my tally up to 14 books in 2018, was Intruders. It's a collection of short stories by Mohale Mashego. Mohale Mashego, South African black young woman. Need I say more, guys? Like, I love it when my sisters write. This is a collection of short stories. A review is about to come up on my channel, on my blog this month. So please do look out for that one. I enjoyed this short story, actually, this collection of short stories, because they did dabble in the supernatural. As you can see, they dabbled in a bit of fantasy slash supernatural slash beautiful. I don't even know how to describe it, but I will delve into it more. It was set in South Africa, which was quite fascinating as well. I love it when we can bring things we love back home. Like, I love it. So this was truly worth my read. I gave it 3.5. It was absolutely divine to read. So as I'm saying, I that brings the tally up to 14. Now let me take a sip of this coffee over here. My goal for the year. Are you guys even ready? I had set myself a goal of 33 books in 2018. Let's sit together. It's okay. 14 is not even half of 33. I failed, guys. I failed so hard. And the only consolation I could give myself was I didn't start reading in January. That is a fact. And I was 2 books more than the previous year. So don't ask a girl why she thought that 33 would be a great number. Well, you can ask, because the only logical explanation was that I was turning 33 last year, so I thought it was cute. How cute is that? Huh? Not so cute anymore. Anyway, so 14 books. I think it was worth giving myself a pat on the back, but it was not what we had aimed for. So this year, my Goodreads challenge says 20 books. So let's see if I can at least get to 20. Like, at the very least. I have very little excuse this year. I started reading in January. I'm not doing school anymore this year. I passed. Hey. Anyway, so I'm not doing school anymore this year. And my kids are a little bit more grown, so they're not so dependent on my presence as much as they might have been these past 2 years. So I do have, what I'm trying to get at is, I will have a little bit more time. I might have a little bit more time than I had in the previous years. So I decided to just moderate my ambition and just say 20. Vuvu, can you do 20? Please. Like, I feel like 20 I could do. I could probably do 20. We will aim for 20. Okay. Thank you once again for watching. Please don't forget to do the right thing. Subscribe and like, share, comment, and all that good stuff. Until next time, I love you very much.